All right, I've got another group of fish for you. These are the Silversides, which are some cool looking little fish that we find here in Kentucky. This actually encompasses two families, Atherinidae and Atherinopsidae. And the reason that we've got these thrown together is because they're very similar fish, and they used to be considered to all be in Atherinidae, but now I think we've updated our species list and we've considered them to be in a different species, and I'll explain all that in a minute. But that's why there's two families in this particular lecture. And so, like I said, there's only two species here in Kentucky. We've got the Brook Silverside, which is in the family Atherinidae, and the Mississippi Silverside, which is in the family Atherinopsidae. And originally, the way I think this worked out was that originally the Mississippi Silverside was called the inland Silverside. That was considered to be the actual species, and they called it the Mississippi Silverside as just a subspecies that was found here in the Midwest and in Kentucky. But what I think has happened is that that's been elevated, and so now the Mississippi Silverside is considered to be a unique species, and that's why it's placed in a different family from the Brook Silverside. So I think, again, it's just kind of an updating of the taxonomy. And so that's the situation. And these fish are pretty easy to identify. They're going to be small and have silver sides, believe it or not. And they're going to look somewhat like a minnow. They're going to be small with a forked tail. But a couple of things you can look for to help identify this species is that it's going to have two dorsal fins, and they're going to be separated. And of course, a minnow is only going to have one dorsal fin. They also have a long falcate anal fin. And so that's something else that will help you identify that from a minnow. And so the Brook Silverside that's in the Atherinidae has kind of a beak. And so we say Brook has a beak. And so you can see that this is a tweezer-like snout for picking bugs off the surface of the water. And what also really sets this species apart is the extremely small scales. So small you can't even really see them. I'll contrast that with the Mississippi Silverside, Atherinopsidae, and it does not have quite the beak that the Brook Silverside does, and the scales are a lot bigger. And so you can see from this picture, you can actually see the scales with the naked eye. And so those two things are going to be the easiest way to tell the different species of Silverside apart. And so again, you see you can't quite see the two dorsal fins in these pictures. You can see that falcate anal fin, and you can clearly see the beak and the smaller scales in the Brook Silverside. One of the stories about the distribution of these species is that the Mississippi Silverside is expanding its range to the detriment of the Brook Silverside. And so you're seeing the Mississippi Silverside replace the Brook Silverside in a lot of places where the brook used to be the only Silverside species. And there's several hypotheses that have been proposed as to why this is true. The Mississippi Silverside might like lentic systems better, or lake-like systems. And so since we've dammed up a lot of our lotic systems and turned them into lentic systems, we've changed the habitat to something that the Mississippi Silverside prefers over the brook. So that might be one explanation. The Mississippi Silverside might have a higher reproductive output on top of that. Another potential explanation for the Mississippi Silverside success in like Kentucky Lake and Barkley Lake is that it eats Daphnia limholsi, which is an invasive zooplankton species that the Brook Silverside cannot eat. And so the Mississippi Silverside might be taking advantage of this new food source. Similar to that is that the adult Mississippi Silversides might eat more copepods, and simply, again, with damming up the rivers, changing those systems, there might be more copepods, and thus, again, a better forage base for the Mississippi Silversides. the Brook Silversides might be better adapted for eating dipterans and things right there on the surface. There's some evidence that the best place to find Brook Silversides on Kentucky Lake is near docks that have lights, because the lights attract bugs that then fall or lay their eggs on the surface, and the brook is well adapted for that. But then in other places in the lake, the Mississippi Silverside is better adapted. So these are all potential hypotheses. I don't know that we can point to any one of these as to being the driving factor. This is a Daphnia limholsi. This is that invasive Daphnia zooplankton species, and it gets these really big spines, and it's a very large Daphnia. And so a lot of the native species can't eat this, but the Mississippi Silverside apparently can. Last thing I want to show you is a couple of graphs, again illustrating this relationship between these two Silverside species. And so this is showing you the range of the Brook Silverside CPUE, or catch per unit of effort. And so this is how much the catch per unit of effort is how many fish you catch per hour of electrofishing or per electrofishing run. And you can see that the range is very variable before the Mississippi Silverside was introduced. So if you look at this graph, let me pull my pen up here. You see in the x-axis, you've got right here, it's writing in white. That is not very useful. We need to write in a color that shows up, like red. And so if you see sort of right here is when the Mississippi Silverside showed up. And so prior to that, there was a lot of variability. There was a lot higher CPUEs, and there's a lot more variability in CPUE from sample to sample. But as you can see that after the Mississippi Silverside invaded, then the CPUE dropped very much, and it became much less variable. And so the Brook Silverside distribution was much less patchy. And so clearly the Mississippi Silverside has had an effect on the Brook Silverside. Here's another graph, and again you're looking at the CPUE of the Brook Silverside on the y-axis versus the years after the initial occurrence of the Mississippi Silverside. And so you can see that early on, when the Mississippi Silverside first showed up, the Brook Silverside catch per unit of effort was very high, but it decreased in a linear fashion. The longer the Mississippis were around, the fewer brooks were around. And so again, this is pretty good evidence that the Mississippi Silverside is replacing the Brook Silverside here in Western Kentucky. Okay, so that's my story about the Silversides. Let me know if you got any questions. See ya.